Hello once again everyone, and welcome back to Going Posta. So, last time we had actually finished off with the first page of Fiore's 12 guards. Now we're going to be talking about the second page. Now today is going to be the idea of going to Posta Longa, which is kind of a guard we've already done quite a bit, as most of our actions up to this point have brought us into Posta Longa. So how do you form it? You're going to have your left foot forward, going to extend your arms out. Your sword should be held at about a 30 to 45 degree angle going inward, so from your right to your left, or if you're left-handed, the opposite. Your right foot should be as equally weighted as your front foot. You do not want to be out here. Even though I've got my right leg a little bit more extended, I still have plenty of weight on it so that I can push off of it as necessary, as opposed to being stuck. Because especially with this one, if you're holding this for long periods of time, people may try to take your leg, so you may need to be able to tornado backward. But the idea of this guard is that, number one, most of the actions we've done henceforth take us through it. So for example, right, if I am out of Posta di Donna d'Esvaza, I'm into Posta Longa. If I am out of Porta di Ferro, my first action takes me into Posta Longa. Technically speaking, even if I do something out of Sinistra, I'm moving into Posta Longa. It's just I'm moving into it in a slightly different way. And you could also argue that Posta Longa is really anything with the arms extended, regardless of which foot is forward. So think of it more that way. But the example that Fiore gives us is specifically keeping the left foot in front. And the reason for this is that we're going to, like the other actions, employ that right step as kind of our big finish. So let's talk a little bit about what you can do with it. So first thing you can do with it is, number one, it is a great way to probe, right? So if I am currently deciding how I'm going to attack Jake, I can stick my point out here, I can see what he's looking to do, and sure, he can attack straight at me, but that's not a particularly good idea when I'm this far extended, as I can easily intercept and make my cover. He has to get through a lot of things to get me. So this is a great time for me to, see what he's doing, keep that tip lively, threaten low, threaten high, without really giving a whole lot of myself away. Now, the important thing about making this guard work for you is being lively with it. I recommend that you just draw a little smiley face every so often, then switch your tempo. Something along those lines tends to keep it so that way they can't just walk up and seize your tip. A still tip is a dead tip. But apart from probing, the first action we can do is launch a thrust, which this guard is apt to do. Now, the thrust can look like a couple different things. Obviously, from this position, I can just extend my arms out, but that's going to be relatively short, since I'm already not at my max extension, but close. That won't have a whole lot to it. Instead, what I like to do is, if I've gone out to Posta Longa and he's done nothing, he's just looking at that point, he's maybe thinking about it. Now go ahead and step forward with a nice hasere to land that thrust. You can also, if you choose to, you can step outward. This is particularly good in the following circumstance, in which I've gone out to Posta Longa and he's just crossing blades with me. Now at current, Jake is not actually adding any energy to my sword. He's just put his sword out because he wants to feel better about himself. If this happens, I'm basically going to do the exchange of points. So I'm going to push forward with my arms, but now I'm going to step a bit more laterally, so I get that nice set aside and cover against his sword. This can be particularly wonderful if you get them in the tempo of them coming to tap your sword. So observe, so I'm not in Posta Longa, up to Posta Longa, right there. It's very hard for him to suddenly go forward, and if he does, I've created that angle and I feel quite safe. So that's option one, launching thrusts. Option two may also be if he tries to cut more for you. This is one you won't necessarily encounter all that much, but some people will still try it. I'm out here, he tries to cut for me. With a little bit of movement, my cover just sets me up for a thrust, essentially. And I'm still in Posta Longa with my right foot forward. It's just what I do then will be determined upon where he ends up. So we won't go too much into that speculation. But the final thing that Posta Longa is great for is the idea of employing deception. So, Fiore says that from this position, if someone tries to strike at it, it is great at avoiding and then returning with blows of its own. So what I interpret this to be, and what works really, really well, is that with your tip out in front, many people will try to seize it. Be it he's trying to use the breaking of the point, exactly, or alternatively, he may even be trying to shear down the line and use something that attacks me while covering himself. Both of these are fine options, as he does need to deal with my point in order to hit me. But what I'm waiting for is in that tempo where he attacks my blade, specifically if you're fighting people that tend to hunt your blade, as he goes for it, I'm just going to go ahead and drop my tip, and then follow through with whatever nipping cut I want to do. At that range, I might even have been able to get away with a thrust. It just depends. Most times what I find is people will try to seize it. You'll just dip, take that hand, and you're pretty safe, just moving back a little bit as you do your cut. Alternatively, if someone steps a little bit deeper at you and you get a better one, go ahead and follow through with the thrust. You can also pass forward with your thrust. Just be aware that especially if you follow through with this pass, you'll have to end up in a slightly funky position sometimes. So if you're going to throw that pass, you might want to consider getting contact and then going ahead and going into close range game. Just depends on what you want. But this can work to both sides. So in case you're playing against either a left-handed player or someone who is in dente de chingado or some other position that gives them the ability to knock blades aside very easily, same exact idea. Oh yeah, very good for me to just kind of deny him. Use it as a probe, see what he likes to do, and return with falling blows of your own or a thrust if that is what you want to do. But otherwise, that's going to be Posta Longa. So thank you once again, Jake. Not a terribly complex guard, but a very useful one. You're going to find yourself there a lot. So employ it and seek with deception. Otherwise, though, thank you very much for watching, and we'll go over some other guards another time.